Will India have access to the general network? On December 16, the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission came out with a draft proposal to facilitate regulatory framework for general network access, which, if implemented, would bring in a radical change to the country's power dispersal system and create a level playing field. GNA means open access to the interstate transmission system. Technically speaking, GNA is a non-discriminatory access to the interstate transmission system for an estimated maximum injection and for a consumer to draw for a specified period. This is in keeping with the concept of one nation, one grid. This is expected to benefit the power generator and consumer, who now are dealing with challenges of transmission too. If the concept becomes a reality, then it will untangle the current webs in the system and ensure that a generator focuses only on producing power and the consumer on buying it. How it will be transmitted will no longer be a restriction or a challenge. For instance, today a power generator has to also work out how the supply will be done due to the point-to-point access concept which, according to the producers, is restrictive. GNA will allow them to supply from any point, as long as the quantum contracted for is met. The draft clearly defines the eligibility for GNA. According to the draft, the following entities shall be eligible as applicants for grant of GNA or for enhancement of the quantum of GNA. State transmission utility on behalf of distribution licensees connected to intrastate transmission system and other intrastate entities. A buying entity connected to intrastate transmission system. Draft Central Electricity Regulatory Commission Regulations, 2021. A distribution licensee, or a bulk consumer, seeking to connect to ISTS directly with a load of 50 megawatts and above. Trading licensees engaged in cross-border trade of electricity in terms of the cross-border regulations. Transmission licensee connected to ISTS for drawal of auxiliary power. Entities not aired here, but as on the date of coming into force of these regulations, are connected to the interstate transmission, or for whom connectivity granted under connectivity regulations has become effective, shall be eligible for applying for grant of GNA to the interstate transmission system for the quantum equal to the quantum of connectivity. Conceptually, GNA does away with predetermined specific point-to-point access and allows access or drawal on the entire beltway, thus providing generators and procurers the choice of injection and drawal. Ashok Kumar Khurana, Director General, Association of Power Producers, explained. But will the concept work? What is the reason of replacing the existing regulations? Why not? Is the response one gets from power producers, who have been asking for it for last 5 years at least. What is the utility of one nation, one grid if power cannot be injected to reach anywhere without any hassle? The producers point out. GNA works like the GST regime, thus doing away with unnecessary contracts between power producers and the bulk consumers for delivery of power. To understand the reason for this proposed shift, one needs to read the 2 orders of CERC, March 2010 and February 2011, that granted approval for 11 high-capacity transmission corridors costing around 50,000 Indian rupees crore for evacuation of power of generation projects of independent power producers. According to reports, the projects progressed slowly due to delay in land acquisition, statutory clearance, and fuel tie-up. Besides, due to certain technical issues in bidding process, not many distribution companies had tied up their power requirement from these generating stations. There was no liability for payment of transmission charges associated with connectivity. It is said that some of the producers were seeking long-term agreements for a quantum much less than their connectivity, while using the existing transmission network, to avoid the liability of paying monthly transmission charges, which would be payable under such agreement. And interstate transmission charges for these stranded lines have been shared by end users, who have little say in such capacity building. Besides, it is often found that the draw requirement of many states is more than the allocated power. The transmission system created to meet the draw requirement of the states fulfills the needs of that particular state. However, the charges are shared by all the beneficiaries. Further, availability of national grid facilitates transfer of power from available cheaper sources. Following these, the Central Electricity Authority initiated the idea of GNA for proper planning of transmission system and assured recovery of transmission charges from the applicant. According to reports, states such as Punjab, Tamil Nadu, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh who are availing themselves of far more import capacity prof interstate transmission than their long-term agreement capacity should proportionally share the point of connection charges at the point of drawal. In the current scenario, if short-term or medium OPX transactions are curtailed, it results in significant bottling up of generation and distress to discoms. While GNA is beneficial to the generator, how does it benefit bulk consumers? The answer is, a consumer is not worried about where the supply will come from and what energy source it will come from. The quantum contracted for will be transmitted to the consumer. In the power sector, the states play an important role. So will the states agree? Since GNA will also result in tariff rationalization to some extent, and states which are making more money could see a drop in tariff rate. Clearly, GNA is a much awaited change and the power generators have been waiting for it. Though it is still at a draft proposal stage, it is a case of better late than never. While the generators wait for it, it remains to be seen how the bulk consumers, namely the states, will respond to it. One hopes this policy does not just remain on paper.